What if the most powerful medicine for your blood sugar after 50 isn't found in a pill bottle, but waiting on your breakfast plate, silently shaping your A1C before the day has even begun? As we move beyond the age of 50, the body becomes more sensitive to patterns rather than single events, and blood sugar reflects this truth with remarkable clarity. The morning meal is not just the first intake of calories, but the first metabolic instruction of the day. Foods rich in natural fiber play a unique role here because they interact with digestion at a physical level, not a chemical one. Fiber changes the speed at which food becomes sugar in the bloodstream, and speed is everything when it comes to A1C. When glucose enters the blood too quickly, insulin must rush to manage it, and over time this repeated urgency leaves cells less responsive. Fiber softens this process, slowing digestion so glucose arrives gradually, giving insulin time to work efficiently rather than desperately. In the aging body, this slowing effect becomes especially valuable because insulin sensitivity naturally declines with time. Fiber-rich morning foods create a gentle buffer inside the gut, forming a gel-like structure that delays carbohydrate breakdown. This delay reduces post-meal spikes, which are a major contributor to elevated A1C even when fasting sugar appears normal. What makes this so powerful is that it works quietly, without forcing restriction or hunger. The body feels fed, satisfied, and stable, which reduces the hormonal signals that would otherwise push the liver to release extra glucose into the bloodstream. There is also a deeper layer of biology at work that often goes unnoticed. Fiber feeds beneficial gut bacteria, and these microorganisms are not passive residents. They produce short-chain fatty acids that improve insulin sensitivity and reduce inflammation, both of which are central to long-term blood sugar control. After 50, low-grade inflammation becomes more common and more damaging, subtly interfering with insulin signaling. By supporting the gut ecosystem early in the day, fiber-rich foods help restore a metabolic environment where glucose can be processed calmly rather than resisted. Morning fiber also influences appetite regulation throughout the day. It stabilizes hormones that control hunger and fullness, reducing the likelihood of sharp cravings later on. This matters because frequent snacking and late-day overeating often raise average blood sugar more than a single indulgent meal. When the morning sets a stable foundation, the rest of the day follows a more predictable rhythm. Blood sugar curves flatten, energy becomes steadier, and the body is less likely to enter cycles of spike and crash that quietly elevate A1C over months. What is most compelling is that this approach aligns with how the body evolved to handle food. Complex, fibrous foods signal abundance without excess, nourishment without overload. They allow the digestive system to work at a pace that matches aging physiology rather than fighting against it. In choosing fiber-rich foods in the morning, we are not chasing numbers or controlling outcomes aggressively, but cooperating with a biological intelligence that already knows how to regulate balance when given the right conditions. After the age of 50, protein stops being just a building block and becomes a form of metabolic protection. The body's relationship with muscle changes quietly over time, and this shift has a direct impact on blood sugar and A1C. Muscle tissue is one of the primary places where glucose is stored and used, yet it naturally declines with age if it is not consistently supported. A morning meal that includes adequate protein sends a powerful signal to preserve this tissue, and in doing so, it strengthens one of the body's most important defenses against rising blood sugar. This is not about eating large amounts, but about timing protein when the body is most receptive to its stabilizing effects. Protein slows digestion in a way that complements carbohydrate metabolism rather than competing with it. When protein is present in the morning, glucose enters the bloodstream more gradually, reducing sharp spikes that strain insulin response. This slower rise allows insulin to act efficiently, guiding glucose into cells rather than leaving it circulating in the blood. Over time, this gentle handling of glucose contributes to lower average blood sugar, which is ultimately reflected in a healthier A1C. The effect is subtle day to day, but powerful when repeated consistently. There is also a hormonal dimension to morning protein that becomes increasingly important with age. Protein stimulates the release of satiety hormones that reduce hunger and stabilize energy levels for hours. This reduces the likelihood of mid-morning cravings and reactive eating, both of which can drive blood sugar fluctuations. At the same time, protein helps suppress excessive glucose release from the liver, a process that often becomes dysregulated in insulin resistance. When the liver feels metabolically supported, it releases glucose at a measured pace rather than flooding the bloodstream unnecessarily. Morning protein intake also plays a role in maintaining insulin sensitivity at the cellular level. Amino acids support muscle repair and maintenance, and active, well-nourished muscle cells respond more effectively to insulin signals. In contrast, muscle loss creates a metabolic vacuum where glucose has fewer places to go, forcing the body to keep it circulating longer in the blood. This is one reason why A1C can rise with age even when eating habits have not dramatically changed. Supporting muscle early in the day helps counter this gradual shift. Beyond the biochemistry, there is a sense of grounding that comes from starting the day with protein. It creates a feeling of stability, both physically and mentally, that shapes decision-making around food later on. Energy becomes steadier, focus improves, and the body is less likely to interpret normal hunger as an emergency. In this way, protein becomes more than nutrition. It becomes a form of metabolic reassurance, reminding the aging body that it is supported, capable, and not under threat, allowing blood sugar regulation to unfold with less resistance and more balance. As the body ages, inflammation becomes one of the quiet forces shaping metabolic health, often without obvious symptoms. This low-grade inflammation interferes with how insulin communicates with cells, making blood sugar harder to control even when food choices seem reasonable. In the morning, the inclusion of healthy fats can gently influence this inflammatory tone and restore a sense of balance at the cellular level. These fats are not simply energy sources. They are structural components of cell membranes and messengers that influence how cells listen and respond to hormonal signals. When the right fats are present early in the day, they help create a metabolic environment that is calmer and more responsive. Healthy fats slow the movement of food through the digestive system, which naturally moderates the release of glucose into the bloodstream. This slowing effect is particularly helpful after 50, when insulin response may be delayed or less efficient. By reducing the speed of digestion, fats allow glucose to enter circulation at a pace the body can manage without stress. This prevents the sharp peaks that drive insulin overproduction and eventually lead to resistance. Over time, smoother blood sugar curves translate into a lower A1C, not through force, but through consistency. At the cellular level, fats play a role in maintaining membrane flexibility. Insulin receptors sit on these membranes, and their ability to function depends on the surrounding lipid environment. When cell membranes are supported by healthy fats, insulin can bind more effectively, allowing glucose to move into cells with less effort. In contrast, poor fat quality can stiffen membranes and impair signaling, contributing to higher circulating glucose. This microscopic interaction has a very real impact on daily blood sugar control, even though it remains invisible to most people. There is also an important connection between healthy fats and the nervous system. The morning hours often carry elevated stress hormones, especially in people over 50 who may experience changes in sleep patterns or increased life stress. Stress hormones raise blood sugar by signaling the liver to release glucose. Healthy fats help stabilize this response by supporting hormone regulation and promoting a sense of satiety and calm. When the body feels nourished and safe, it is less likely to trigger unnecessary glucose release, allowing blood sugar to remain steadier throughout the morning. Perhaps most importantly, healthy fats invite a shift in how we think about nourishment. They encourage patience, presence, and a slower rhythm of eating that aligns with aging physiology. Rather than chasing quick energy, fats offer sustained support that reduces the metabolic urgency so common in modern diets. This sustained support creates space for the body to regulate itself naturally. In choosing healthy fats in the morning, we are not just feeding the body, but signaling trust in its capacity to find balance, allowing blood sugar control to emerge as a byproduct of care rather than control. After the age of 50, the body's relationship with stress changes in subtle but meaningful ways, and this relationship has a direct impact on blood sugar regulation. Even when food choices are carefully managed, stress hormones can quietly elevate glucose levels by signaling the liver to release stored sugar into the bloodstream. This process is automatic and deeply rooted in survival biology, yet in modern life it often activates without true physical danger. The morning hours are especially sensitive, as cortisol naturally rises upon waking. How we eat in this window can either amplify this stress response or gently soften it. The pace and presence of the morning meal matter as much as its composition. Eating quickly, distracted, or in a state of urgency keeps the nervous system in a heightened state, reinforcing signals that raise blood sugar. In contrast, a calm, intentional morning meal shifts the body toward parasympathetic dominance, where digestion and glucose regulation function more efficiently. This shift reduces the unnecessary release of glucose from the liver and improves insulin sensitivity throughout the day. Over time, this repeated calming effect contributes to lower average blood sugar and a healthier A1C. There is a powerful feedback loop between the nervous system and the digestive system that becomes more pronounced with age. When the body perceives safety, blood flow is directed toward digestion, enzymes are released more effectively, and nutrients are absorbed in a balanced way. This allows glucose to be processed steadily rather than erratically. Stress disrupts this process, diverting resources away from digestion and impairing glucose handling. By cultivating a calm morning eating ritual, we are not just reducing stress, but restoring a biological context in which blood sugar regulation becomes easier and more natural. Mindful morning eating also influences hormonal balance beyond cortisol. It stabilizes insulin response and supports hormones involved in appetite regulation, reducing the likelihood of overeating later in the day. This matters because late-day eating often occurs when insulin sensitivity is lower, increasing the impact on A1C. A grounded morning sets a tone that carries forward, shaping food choices, portion awareness, and metabolic stability across the entire day. At a deeper level, this approach reflects a compassionate understanding of the aging body. Rather than treating rising blood sugar as a failure or something to fight against, it invites curiosity and cooperation. It acknowledges that the body is responding to signals, not just calories. When we slow down, breathe, and eat with intention in the morning, we communicate safety and respect to our physiology. In response, the body often releases its grip on excess glucose, allowing balance to emerge not through control, but through alignment with the rhythms it has always known. One of the most overlooked influences on blood sugar after the age of 50 is consistency, not just in what we eat, but in how the body learns to anticipate nourishment. The body thrives on rhythm, and the morning meal acts as a daily reset that trains metabolic systems to expect balance rather than surprise. When breakfast timing and composition are relatively stable, the pancreas, liver, and muscles begin to coordinate more efficiently. Glucose is handled with less resistance, insulin is released more appropriately, and blood sugar variability decreases. Over weeks and months, this reduction in variability becomes visible as a lower A1C, even without dramatic dietary changes. Morning foods that support this rhythm tend to work through gentle reinforcement rather than immediate correction. They encourage the body to settle into a predictable metabolic pattern where glucose rises and falls smoothly. This predictability reduces the need for compensatory mechanisms that often worsen insulin resistance over time. When the body knows what to expect, it does not overreact. The liver releases glucose steadily, muscles absorb it willingly, and the bloodstream becomes a place of transit rather than congestion. There is also an adaptive intelligence within the body that becomes clearer with age. Repeated exposure to balanced morning meals helps recalibrate insulin sensitivity at the cellular level. Cells that are consistently exposed to moderate glucose levels remain responsive, while those exposed to repeated spikes begin to resist. By shaping the morning environment carefully, we influence this cellular memory. Each day becomes a small lesson in stability, and the body learns that extreme responses are no longer necessary. Consistency also supports emotional regulation, which indirectly affects blood sugar. Irregular mornings often lead to rushed decisions, skipped meals, or reactive eating later in the day. These patterns increase stress hormones and disrupt glucose control. A reliable morning routine creates a sense of grounding that extends beyond nutrition. It reduces cognitive load, supports better food choices, and lowers the background stress that quietly elevates blood sugar. This emotional steadiness is not separate from metabolic health. It is woven into it. At its core, this approach invites patience and trust. Lowering A1C after 50 is rarely about quick fixes or aggressive interventions. It is about creating conditions where the body can remember how to regulate itself. Each morning meal becomes a reaffirmation of care, a signal that nourishment will arrive consistently and calmly. Over time, the body responds by softening its defenses, releasing excess glucose more willingly, and restoring balance through repetition rather than force. In this way, morning food choices become a form of dialogue with the body, one that speaks of respect, continuity, and a shared commitment to long-term well-being.